The notification arrived at 3:47 a.m., an unwelcome intrusion into the silence of my Seattle bedroom. My banking application displayed a transaction alert with clinical precision. A charge of $42,160 posted to my account, ending in 4948. My stomach performed an involuntary contraction as I scrolled through the transaction details, searching for context that might somehow render this impossible situation comprehensible. 35 first-class airline tickets from New York to Dubai, all purchased at 3:09 a.m. while I remained asleep, unaware that my financial security was being systematically dismantled. The confirmation email from Emirates Airlines provided the final confirmation of the disaster unfolding on my phone screen. I scanned the passenger manifest with mounting horror. My parents appeared twice on the list. My brother, Trevor, and his wife, Melissa, occupied seats 4A and 4B. My sister Hannah and her husband Kyle, accompanied by their 3 children, were assigned to a private suite. Extended family members I barely recognized, individuals whose names I could scarcely place, all traveled in luxury accommodations, all purchased with my stolen credit card information. I placed the call to my mother at 6:03 a.m., unconcerned with the early hour or the distance between time zones. She answered on the 3rd ring, her voice infused with that particular tone she perfected over 3 decades, falsely sweet, deliberately ignorant of wrongdoing. "Clarissa, darling," she said, using the formal version of my name she employed when she wanted me to understand she controlled our interaction. "You are awake quite early. Perhaps you cannot sleep with excitement about the family reunion?" I forced myself to breathe deliberately, a technique I had learned during my graduate studies when faced with particularly frustrating research obstacles. "Mother, what exactly did you do?" I asked, my voice demonstrating a steadiness I did not feel. "You charged over $40,000 to my credit card, my personal credit card, without authorization." She laughed, a sound I had heard countless times throughout my childhood, a laugh that preceded manipulation, dismissal, or outright deception. "Oh, that. Well, your father and I simply decided that the family reunion in Dubai deserved to be special. First-class accommodations seemed appropriate for such an occasion. Everyone is tremendously excited." I forced myself to articulate what should have been obvious. You cannot simply steal someone's credit card information and book international flights. That constitutes fraud, Mother. That is a serious federal crime. "Steal?" She made the word sound ridiculous, as though I were being unnecessarily dramatic. "Do not be hysterical, Claire. We are family. Your father spoke with you 3 weeks ago about the ticket pricing. He mentioned the cost was approximately $1,220 per person. You informed him you would not be attending. We simply assumed you would not mind assisting everyone else in experiencing this extraordinary opportunity." I permitted myself to recall that conversation from 21 days prior. My father had called me, his voice enthusiastic as he described the family reunion his wealthier brother was orchestrating in Dubai. He had mentioned the airfare cost, approximately $1,020 per person, and I had respectfully declined participation. My position as a biotechnology research coordinator provided me with a respectable salary, but it remained firmly in the middle-class range. Spending over $1,000 on an airline ticket to attend a week of obligatory family social engagements held no appeal whatsoever. "That conversation," I said, maintaining my composure with considerable effort, "did not provide authorization to use my financial accounts. This was theft, Mother. Theft disguised as family obligation." My mother's response came through with calculated casualness. "Well, it is done now. The tickets are non-refundable. You might as well accept the situation gracefully. Besides, this is what family does for one another. We sacrifice. Your father and I sacrificed tremendously when raising you 3 children. The very least you can do is assist us in enjoying our retirement years." The manipulation was so familiar it had worn grooves in my psyche over the course of 29 years. My parents had consistently favored my older brother Trevor, who had pursued a lucrative career as a financial consultant and now maintained an impressive Manhattan apartment. They lavished attention on my younger sister Hannah, whose physical attractiveness had attracted a wealthy husband and produced the grandchildren my parents adored. I occupied the middle position in this family hierarchy, the daughter who had chosen science over social climbing, research advancement over recognition, intellectual achievement over the kind of success my family understood and valued. "I will be requiring you to repay every cent," I said, managing to keep my tone level despite the rage building behind my sternum. "Every single dollar." My mother sighed dramatically, a performance designed to demonstrate my unreasonableness. "Claire, we barely maintain any savings whatsoever. Your father's pension does not extend very far. We were genuinely counting on your generosity. Surely you understand. Do not be selfish about this." The accusation of selfishness struck me as almost comical. You accessed my financial accounts without permission and spent over $40,000. I did not give you permission. I did not authorize these expenditures. You stole from me. "We stole nothing," my mother replied with conviction. "I simply utilized the card information you provided to us 3 years ago during your father's surgical recovery. You specifically designated that account for medical emergencies. This situation qualifies as an emergency. Your uncle is celebrating his 70th birthday. Your father only turned 71 single time in his entire life." I struggled against the urge to scream. 3 years ago, I had genuinely needed help managing my father's post-operative medical expenses and had provided my credit card information explicitly for that singular purpose, to assist with co-payments and hospital charges that his insurance did not cover. I had explicitly stated at that time that this authorization was limited to medical emergencies. Apparently, my mother had interpreted this narrowly defined authorization as a permanent grant to access my accounts whenever she deemed the situation important enough. "I am reporting this to my bank as fraud," I said quietly, my voice taking on a harder edge. "I will be contacting law enforcement. This is a serious criminal matter." My mother's response was immediate and visceral. The warmth disappeared from her voice, replaced by something distinctly cold and threatening. "You would not dare embarrass our family with such a scandal. Consider the consequences. Your parents prosecuted for credit card fraud. Imagine what people would say. How would that reflect on Trevor's business? What would happen to Hannah's social standing? Your brother's clients would abandon him. Your sister's reputation would be destroyed. They would all suffer for your selfishness." The threat was unmistakable. If I pursued legal recourse, I would be cast as the villain in a family tragedy. I would become the ungrateful daughter who destroyed her parents for an act of desperation. I would be responsible for the cascading consequences that would destroy my siblings' lives by association. The psychological manipulation was sophisticated. They had woven my siblings' welfare into the equation, making it impossible for me to take action without appearing monstrous. I ended the call without further discussion, sitting in the pre-dawn darkness and allowing rage and helplessness to wage war within my consciousness. This was not the first time my family had exploited my financial resources. Over the years, they had borrowed money with promises of repayment that never materialized. They had requested that I co-sign loans they subsequently defaulted on. They had expected me to cover expenses for family events I had never agreed to attend. But this was fundamentally different. This was brazen theft disguised as family obligation. This was financial violation masquerading as familial duty. My phone buzzed with an incoming text message from my brother. "Thanks for covering the flight, sis. Dad told us you volunteered. Very generous of you. See you in Dubai." The message demonstrated that they had already constructed the narrative. In their version of events, I had volunteered for this massive financial commitment. I had offered to subsidize their luxury vacation. I was the generous family member making a magnanimous gesture. The reality that they had stolen from me without authorization had already been rewritten into something more palatable for their own consciences. I wanted to throw my phone across the room. Instead, I forced myself to get up and prepare coffee, moving through the mechanical motions of my morning routine while my mind processed the disaster. As a research coordinator at a prominent biotechnology firm, my professional life required precision, meticulous attention to detail, and the capacity to solve extraordinarily complex problems. I had spent years developing systematic approaches to scientific challenges. I needed to apply that same methodical framework to this personal crisis. By the time dawn broke over Seattle, transforming the sky from black to gray to pale blue, I had arrived at a decision. I would not report this as fraud to my bank. My mother had been correct about one aspect of her threat. The consequences would be devastating. Law enforcement involvement would create a public scandal that would reverberate through my family for years. The fallout would be worse than the financial loss itself. But that did not mean I would simply accept this violation and move forward as though nothing had happened. I would not forgive this transgression. I would not forget. Most importantly, I would ensure that my family understood the full weight of what they had done. I went to work that morning carrying the new weight of betrayal like a stone in my chest. My colleague, Jessica, with whom I had worked closely for 4 years and who understood the complicated dynamics of my family situation, noticed immediately that something was profoundly wrong. "You look absolutely terrible," she said bluntly, setting a container of homemade cookies on my desk in an instinctive gesture of comfort. "What happened? Did something occur with your research? Is everything all right?" I explained the situation while we reviewed data from our latest clinical trial. The study was focused on regenerative tissue therapy, groundbreaking research that could revolutionize treatment options for degenerative diseases affecting millions of people worldwide. The profound irony was not lost on me as I articulated my family's betrayal. I spent my professional life attempting to heal people and alleviate human suffering, while my own biological family inflicted fresh psychological and financial wounds. "Your parents stole $43,000 from you?" Jessica repeated, her expression shifting from concern to shock. "Claire, that is serious theft. You absolutely must report this to law enforcement. That is a federal crime." "And then what?" I asked, already exhausted by the scenario I had played through multiple times since 3:47 a.m. "My parents go to prison. My siblings refuse to speak with me ever again. I become the monster who destroyed the family over money. I become the cautionary tale they tell each other, the selfish daughter who valued money over loyalty." Jessica looked unconvinced. "They are manipulating you. That is what abusive families do. They make you responsible for managing their consequences. You are not responsible for their criminal behavior." "I know that intellectually," I said, turning back to the computer screen and the spreadsheet displaying trial results. "But knowing something and being able to implement that knowledge are two entirely different things." Throughout the remainder of that day, I received messages from various family members. Hannah sent a photograph of a new outfit she had purchased for the Dubai trip, an expensive designer ensemble that suggested her claimed financial struggles were perhaps exaggerated. Trevor forwarded restaurant recommendations for Dubai, apparently assuming that I had reversed my earlier refusal and would be joining the vacation. Aunts and uncles I barely knew sent messages thanking me for my generosity and expressing how excited they were for the trip. No one asked if I had actually authorized these expenditures. No one questioned whether this was appropriate. No one seemed to consider that perhaps stealing $43,000 from someone, even a family member, might warrant some discussion or negotiation. They simply accepted that Claire, reliable Claire, would handle the financial burden because that was what Claire did. That was the role I had been assigned within the family structure. By the time I returned to my modest one-bedroom apartment in Seattle that evening, I had already begun formulating a plan. It would require time and careful execution, but I had developed considerable skills in both areas through my scientific work. I started by documenting everything with the precision I applied to laboratory work. I created screenshots of every charge. I recorded subsequent phone conversations with my mother. I located and organized every email confirming that I had never authorized these purchases. I developed a detailed spreadsheet tracking every financial transgression my family had committed against me over the past decade. The totals were staggering. Over $97,000 in unpaid loans, covered expenses, and outright theft. My parents had retired to a modest home in upstate New York 5 years ago, yet somehow afforded luxury vacations and expensive hobbies while claiming poverty. Trevor maintained a high-rise apartment in Manhattan that far exceeded what his income could reasonably support. Hannah and her husband Kyle owned a sprawling house in Connecticut, filled with designer furniture and expensive toys for their children. And then there was me, living in a one-bedroom apartment in Seattle, driving a used car from 2014 and carefully budgeting every expense because I was perpetually recovering from my family's financial vampirism. The following morning, I contacted my bank and explained the situation carefully. I made a deliberate decision not to report it as fraud. Instead, I implemented new security measures and canceled the compromised card. The representative was sympathetic but firm about the reality. Since the officier charges had already processed and the airline had issued the tickets, recovery would prove difficult without an official fraud claim. I understand, I said. I simply want to ensure this cannot happen again. I need to know that my accounts are now secure. I also scheduled a consultation with a lawyer, someone Jessica had recommended who specialized in family law and financial disputes. During our meeting in his downtown Seattle office, he confirmed what I already suspected. I could pursue legal action, but the process would be costly, time-consuming, and emotionally devastating. However, he added an important caveat. You should document absolutely everything. If you decide to pursue this matter later, you will need a comprehensive paper trail. Additionally, if they attempt something similar in the future, you will have evidence of a pattern of behavior. I left his office with a folder containing information about my legal options and placed it in a drawer, not quite ready to utilize it, but comforted by its existence. The family reunion was scheduled for 3 weeks in the future. I spent that interval watching my family's social media activity with cold detachment. My mother posted daily countdowns to the trip. Trevor shared photographs of new luggage sets he had purchased. Hannah documented the spa treatments she planned to book upon arrival in Dubai. None of them mentioned who had financed their flights. None of them offered direct thanks, though a few crafted vague posts about family generosity and blessings. It was as though the money had materialized from thin air, a natural entitlement rather than theft. I maintained my professional routine, conducting research and attending meetings with perfect normalcy. But beneath the surface, something fundamental had shifted within me. I had spent 29 years attempting to earn my family's love and approval, believing that if I simply gave enough and sacrificed enough, they would eventually recognize my value. This final betrayal had shattered that illusion comprehensively. On Wednesday evening, the day before their departure, my father called. His voice carried no preamble or greeting, just direct confrontation. "Your mother tells me you are upset about the tickets," he said. "I need to understand why." "Upset does not begin to describe this, Father," I replied, maintaining composure. "You accessed my financial accounts without authorization and spent over $40,000. "You are being unreasonable," he responded. "We raised you. We clothed you. We fed you. We paid for your education. You owe us." "I have repaid that obligation 10 times over," I said quietly. "Additionally, you should note that I earned scholarships covering most of my education. The student loans I accepted, I repaid myself over the course of 5 years. Family helps family. he insisted stubbornly. "Your uncle is expecting all of us. How would it appear if we did not attend because you were too selfish to assist your own parents?" I posed a counter question. How would it appear if people knew my parents committed credit card fraud against their own daughter? Silence stretched across the telephone line. When my father finally spoke again, his voice had become absolutely still, a tone I had come to recognize as indicating something dangerous. "You need to adjust your perspective on this situation, Claire," he said. "No one appreciates a selfish daughter. We did not raise you to behave this way." He disconnected the call before I could respond, leaving me sitting in the darkness of my apartment with the phone still pressed against my ear. That conversation clarified everything with crystalline precision. They felt no remorse about their actions. They did not believe they had done anything wrong. In their minds, my financial resources were communal family property. I owed them everything, while they owed me nothing. I spent that evening researching Dubai, not because I had reconsidered attending, but because I needed to understand the setting where this family drama would unfold. I researched luxury hotels, fine dining establishments, and exclusive experiences. I noted the costs, calculated the excess, and documented the indulgence my family would enjoy on my stolen money. The day before their departure, Hannah called. Unlike our parents, she at least possessed sufficient self-awareness to sound somewhat guilty. "Claire, I understand you are upset," she began carefully, "but you must try to understand our circumstances. Kyle lost his job 3 months ago. We have been struggling financially. This trip represents an opportunity for our children to create memories with their grandparents. Can you truly begrudge them that experience?" "Did Kyle lose his employment before or after you purchased that new furniture I observed on your Instagram account?" I asked. "And the designer handbags you posted photos of last week. When exactly were those purchased during your financial struggle?" Hannah went silent. "Those were gifts," she finally said defensively. "The point is, we needed this trip. The children needed this trip." "From whom were these gifts?" I asked. And more importantly, no one asked me. No one consulted me before making this decision. You all simply decided that my money was yours to access. Hannah's next words contained an honesty that was almost refreshing in its cruelty. "Because we knew you would refuse. You always refuse. You are constantly too busy with your important research position to care about family. We took what we needed because you were not going to help us voluntarily." Her admission was striking. They had stolen from me because they believed they deserved my money more than I did. They had decided my refusal to voluntarily surrender my financial resources meant they were justified in taking it without permission. "Have an excellent trip, Hannah," I said. Then I disconnected the call. That night, sleep eluded me. I lay in bed contemplating every family gathering where I had been overlooked, every professional achievement that went unnoticed by my family, every instance where I had been asked to give while receiving nothing of substance in return. My research had been published in respected scientific journals. I had contributed to breakthrough studies that helped thousands of people suffering from degenerative diseases. I had built a career founded on dedication, intelligence, and rigorous scientific methodology. Yet none of that mattered to my family. To them, I was simply a resource to be exploited. The next morning, I watched my family board their flight to Dubai from a continent away. Their social media posts documented the experience. Champagne in the first-class lounge, children excited about boarding passes, my parents dressed in expensive outfits I had never seen before, outfits purchased with money they claimed not to possess, my siblings looking satisfied and comfortable. 35 people boarding an aircraft in first-class seating, all courtesy of my stolen credit card. I went to work and threw myself into research with focused intensity. We were preparing for a major presentation to potential investors, pharmaceutical companies interested in funding the next phase of our clinical trials. The presentation would determine whether our groundbreaking research continued or faced termination. The pressure was significant, but I welcomed it. Work represented something I could control, unlike the chaos of my family's situation. Jessica found me in the laboratory at 8:15 p.m., still running calculations and analyzing data. "You need to go home," she said gently. "You have been here since 6 this morning." "I need to finish this analysis first," I replied, my eyes remaining fixed on the computer screen. "The analysis will exist tomorrow as well," Jessica pointed out. "You need rest. You need distance from this situation." She sat down beside me, and I found myself articulating what I had been experiencing. "My family is in Dubai right now, staying in a luxury hotel with a view of the Burj Khalifa, enjoying first-class experiences my stolen money provided. They posted photos all day celebrating their good fortune. Not one of them thanked me directly. Not one of them acknowledged that this trip would not exist without my financial violation. Jessica listened without interrupting, then offered, "For what it is worth, I think you are handling this with extraordinary grace. I would have engaged in considerably more dramatic forms of retaliation." I managed a small smile. "The trip is not over yet." After Jessica left, I packed my work materials and headed home. My apartment felt empty and hollow. I ordered takeout and ate while scrolling through my family's posts. They had arrived in Dubai. The hotel was magnificent. My parents had somehow secured a suite with a view of the Burj Khalifa. Trevor posted a photograph of expensive champagne awaiting him in his room with a caption about living well. All of it funded by my theft. I opened my laptop and created a new document titled simply Documentation. Then I began writing everything down with the precision I applied to scientific research. Every detail of the theft, every conversation, every manipulation. I included dates, specific amounts, and exact quotations where my memory was reliable. I attached screenshots and bank statements. When I finished, well past midnight, the document was 23 pages long, a comprehensive record of financial abuse spanning a decade. I saved it in 3 different locations and emailed a copy to myself. Then I did something I had never done before. I blocked my family members on social media, all of them. I did not want to see their vacation photographs, their manufactured gratitude, their false joy purchased with my money. They could enjoy their trip without me bearing witness to their exploitation. The week of my family's absence passed in a strange calm. Without the constant barrage of family drama and financial manipulation, I found myself considerably more focused at work. Our presentation to the investors was approaching, and I channeled every ounce of energy into preparation. The research we had conducted was solid, innovative, and potentially revolutionary. I believed in it completely. The day of the presentation arrived, and I stood before a room of corporate executives and accomplished scientists presenting years of dedicated work with confidence and clarity. I fielded questions about methodology, statistical significance, and clinical applications. I spoke about the potential impact on patients, the lives that could be improved, the suffering that could be alleviated. When I concluded, the room fell silent for a moment. Then Victoria, a woman in her 50s who headed a major pharmaceutical company, stood and applauded. Others followed suit. We had succeeded. The funding was approved, a multi-million-dollar investment that would enable our research to advance to the next level. Jessica hugged me in the hallway afterward, genuine pride evident in her expression. "You were absolutely brilliant. That presentation was perfect." I should have felt triumphant. This was the culmination of years of work, a validation of my skills and scientific capabilities. But underneath the professional satisfaction was a hollow ache. I had no one to share this achievement with. My family was still in Dubai, still spending my money, still oblivious to my accomplishments. That evening, while sitting in my apartment with a glass of wine, I allowed myself to feel everything I had been suppressing: rage at the theft, grief at the betrayal, loneliness from years of being undervalued, and underneath it all, a cold determination that my circumstances would change. My phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. The message was from Victoria. "This is Victoria from the presentation today. I was very impressed with your work. Would you be interested in discussing a potential opportunity? I think you are exactly the kind of talent our company needs." I stared at the message, my mind processing the implications. An opportunity with one of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the world. This could be genuinely career-defining. I typed back, "I would be very interested in learning more." Her response came quickly. "Excellent. I am in Seattle through tomorrow. Dinner tonight to discuss? My treat." I agreed and spent the next hour preparing for what felt like the beginning of something significant. When I met Victoria at an upscale restaurant in downtown Seattle, she demonstrated no interest in the social pleasantries that typically precede business discussions. She got directly to the point. "Claire, I do not waste time with false flattery," she said over appetizers. "Your research is extraordinary. Your presentation skills are exceptional. I want you to head a new division we are creating focused specifically on regenerative medicine therapies. The salary is $300,000 annually, plus stock options and performance bonuses." I nearly aspirated my water. My current salary was $92,000. The jump was almost incomprehensible. Victoria smiled at my visceral reaction. "I can see this interests you. The position is based here in Seattle, so relocation would not be necessary. We are building something genuinely revolutionary, and I want the absolute best people leading it. You are the best." "When would you need an answer?" I asked, trying to steady my voice. "Take the weekend to think about it," she replied. "But I will be candid. I am in discussions with other candidates as well. This is not an empty offer, Claire. I genuinely believe you are the right person for this role, but I need someone committed and prepared to move quickly." We talked for 2 hours about the research vision, the new division's objectives, and the resources I would have at my disposal. It was everything I had ever wanted professionally: recognition, authority, and the financial means to do work that truly mattered. When I got home that night, I found 17 missed calls from my mother. I had unblocked my family earlier in the day without thinking, a reflexive habit I immediately regretted. There were also 12 text messages, each more frantic than the preceding one. The initial messages pertained to the trip, how wonderful Dubai was, how grateful everyone felt, how blessed they were to have such a generous family member. But the later messages took a distinctly different tone. "Your father fell at the hotel. He is in the hospital. Call me immediately." "Claire, this is an emergency. Your father needs you to send money for medical expenses. The travel insurance is not covering the full cost. Why are you not answering? Your father could die, and you cannot even be bothered to pick up the phone." I felt a twinge of concern that was quickly drowned by suspicion. Something did not align with this scenario. I contacted the hotel directly and requested to speak with their medical services coordinator. After explaining the situation, I was transferred to a manager who confirmed that a guest matching my father's description had indeed slipped in the lobby earlier that day. "Is he still in the hospital?" I asked. "Oh no," the manager said. "He refused medical transport. He seemed fine, just a bit shaken. He went back to his room approximately 3 hours ago." So my father was fine. This was another manipulation, another calculated attempt to extract money from me. I wondered what amount they would request this time. 5,000? 10,000? I did not call my mother back. Instead, I went to bed and slept better than I had in weeks. The next morning, my mother called at 7:00 a.m. sharp. "Claire, finally," she said when I answered. "Why did you not call me back? Your father could have died." The hotel manager informed me that father refused medical transport and returned to his room hours ago. I said calmly, "He is fine." There was a pause. "Well, he is fine now, but he was hurt. He needs private care for the remainder of the trip. The hotel doctor recommended a private nurse. The cost will be $8,000. "No," I said simply. "What do you mean, no? Your father does not need private care. If he required medical attention, he would be in a hospital. This is another manipulation designed to extract more money from me. I will not be paying for it." My mother's voice became venomous. "How dare you? After everything we have done for you, you would let your father suffer? You already stole over $40,000 from me." "I did not steal anything," I said coldly. "You stole from me. You accessed my accounts without permission and booked flights without authorization. You lied about father's injury to manipulate me into sending more money. I am finished with this." She hung up without responding. I spent the weekend seriously considering Victoria's offer. The salary alone would fundamentally change my life. I could pay off my remaining student loans, build actual savings, and stop living paycheck to paycheck because my family had drained every extra dollar I earned. But beyond the financial benefit, this position represented validation. Someone saw my worth. Someone recognized my value. On Monday morning, I called Victoria and accepted the position. We agreed on a start date 6 weeks in the future, which would give me time to transition my research responsibilities and prepare for this new role. When I informed my current supervisor about my departure, he was disappointed but understanding. "You deserve this opportunity," he said. "You have been fundamental to this project's success. We are going to miss you tremendously, but I am excited to see what you will accomplish next." Jessica was thrilled when I told her the news. "This is incredible, Claire. We absolutely must celebrate this week." That evening, I checked social media out of habit and discovered that I had been tagged in several posts from Dubai. I'd forgotten to reblock everyone after verifying my father's supposed injury. The posts were from the final days of the trip. Hannah had written, "So grateful to family who make dreams possible. This trip has been magical. The kids will remember it forever." Trevor had shared a photograph of everyone at dinner, expensive wine bottles lining the table. Family is everything. Blessed beyond measure. My mother had posted a sunset photograph with a caption, 35 of us together in Dubai, proof that family bonds are stronger than anything. Thank you to everyone who contributed to making this happen. I noticed what they all had in common. Vague gratitude with no specific mention of me, no direct acknowledgement that I had financed their trip. They had taken my money but would not even publicly recognize me. It was as though the funds had materialized from thin air. I blocked them all again and deleted the tags. 6 weeks later, I started my new position. Victoria had not overstated the opportunity. The resources were extraordinary, the team was talented, and the work was exactly what I had always wanted to pursue. My first week, I attended a pharmaceutical industry conference, where I was introduced as the director of the new regenerative medicine division. People who had previously ignored me suddenly wanted to network and establish connections. At the conference, I encountered Gregory, a former graduate school colleague I had not seen in years. He now worked as a medical technology consultant. We had coffee and caught up on the past decade. "You have done incredibly well for yourself," he said. "I always knew you would. You were the smartest person in our program." During our conversation, Gregory mentioned something that made my blood pressure spike. "I saw you tagged in some photos from Dubai a few weeks ago. That looked like an expensive family trip. Must have been significant expenditure with all those first-class tickets." "I did not actually attend," I said carefully. "That was my family's trip." "I see," Gregory said thoughtfully. "Interesting. I was at the same hotel that week for a different conference. I saw your family in the lobby several times. They seemed to be enjoying themselves tremendously. Your father was actually quite vocal about everything. He was telling people in the lobby about his daughter, the big shot pharmaceutical executive who paid for everyone to come on this luxury trip. He made it sound like you were some high-powered executive with unlimited resources." I felt heat rise in my face. My father had used my theft to elevate his own status, lying about my position and salary to impress strangers at a hotel. He had turned my humiliation into his bragging opportunity. That evening, I called the private investigator again. I need you to find out everything about my parents' current financial situation, I said. Assets, debts, income streams, everything. I also need the same information from my siblings. Are you planning legal action? He asked. I am planning something, I said. I am just not certain what yet. The investigator's report arrived 2 weeks later. It was significantly worse than I had imagined. My parents had over $80,000 in credit card debt, a second mortgage on their house they could barely afford, and minimal savings. Trevor's various startup ventures had all failed, leaving him with substantial business debts and a reputation for unreliability. Hannah and Kyle were 3 months behind on their mortgage payments and facing possible foreclosure. They were all drowning financially, and they had been using me as their life raft, taking whatever they could, whenever they could, because they had no other options. I should have felt pity. Instead, I felt cold clarity. These people would never change. They would never see me as anything other than a resource to be exploited. No amount of giving would ever be enough. No sacrifice would ever earn their respect. I had spent 29 years trying to buy love from people who only valued me for what I could provide. My opportunity for decisive action came sooner than expected. I received a call from an attorney representing my Uncle Robert, the one who had hosted the Dubai reunion. He was updating his will and wanted to discuss the family dynamics. Your uncle is concerned about how his estate will be distributed, the attorney explained. He knows your parents struggle financially, and he worries about leaving them a large sum that they might mismanage. He asked me to speak with you about potentially serving as a trustee of his estate. Why me? I asked. He says you are the only responsible one in the family. He respects your education and career. He believes you would handle the responsibility appropriately. I scheduled a call with Uncle Robert for the following week. During our conversation, he was surprisingly candid. Claire, I know what happened with the flights. Your mother bragged about it, said she was clever for getting you to pay for everyone. I told her she stole from you and she denied it entirely. You are correct, I said. They stole from me. I know, I'm not naive. I have known your parents my entire life. They have been taking advantage of relatives for decades. I am disappointed but not shocked. But here's what I want to discuss with you. We talked for over an hour. By the end of the conversation, I had agreed to serve as trustee of a trust that would manage any inheritance my parents received. They would receive monthly disbursements, but could not access the principal. It was not revenge exactly. It was protection against their worst impulses. There is one more thing, Uncle Robert said before we concluded. I am planning to update my will to leave you a significant portion of my estate. Not because I pity you, but because you have made something of yourself without relying on family money. You deserve to be rewarded for that. I was genuinely speechless. Uncle Robert, that is incredibly generous, but I do not expect anything from you. I know you do not, he said. That is exactly why you are getting it. The will revision will be complete next month. I wanted you to know in advance. 3 weeks after we ended our call, Uncle Robert suffered a sudden heart attack and passed away. His death shocked me. He had seemed healthy, vibrant, decades away from death. The reading of the will was scheduled for 1 month later in Manhattan. I flew to New York for the reading, my first trip back since before the Dubai incident. The attorney's office was in Manhattan, an impressive space that screamed expensive. I arrived early and waited in a conference room with polished wood furniture and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. My parents walked in 10 minutes later and stopped dead when they saw me sitting there. "What are you doing here?" my mother demanded. "I was invited," I said calmly. "Uncle Robert asked me to serve as trustee for his estate." My father's face turned an alarming shade of red. "That is ridiculous. We are his siblings. If anyone should be trustee, it should be us." Uncle Robert disagreed, I replied simply. Trevor and Hannah arrived next, both looking deeply uncomfortable when they saw me. We had not spoken since I cut them off. Hannah attempted to smile, but it came out as more of a grimace. Trevor ignored me entirely, positioning himself as far from me as possible. The attorney, James, entered precisely at 2 p.m., carrying a leather portfolio. He introduced himself as Uncle Robert's personal attorney for the past 20 years. His expression was professionally neutral as he surveyed the room. "Thank you all for coming," he began formally. Robert was very specific about how he wanted this handled. "Before we begin the reading of the will, I need to address some preliminary matters." He opened the portfolio and removed several documents. Robert came to me 8 months ago to substantially revise his estate plan. He was very clear about his reasoning, and he asked me to share certain information with all of you before distributing the assets. My mother shifted uncomfortably. My father's jaw was clenched tightly. James continued. "Robert was aware of the financial difficulties many of you face. He was also aware of certain behaviors within the family that concerned him greatly. Specifically, he knew about the incident involving Claire's credit card and the Dubai trip. My siblings had the decency to look ashamed. My parents looked defiant. Robert felt strongly that his estate should benefit those who had demonstrated responsibility and integrity," James continued. "To that end, he has left the bulk of his estate, valued at approximately $4.2 million, to Claire." The room erupted into chaos. My mother gasped. My father slammed his hand on the table. Trevor shouted that the will would be contested. Hannah began crying. James waited calmly for the noise to subside. "The will is ironclad. I assure you it was prepared with specific anticipation of challenges. Robert was of completely sound mind when he made these decisions." He turned to me. "Claire, you inherit the primary estate, including Robert's investment portfolio, his property in the Hamptons, and the majority of his liquid assets. You also inherit his collection of rare books and his vintage automobile collection." I sat frozen, unable to process the magnitude of what I was hearing. James turned to my parents. To his brother and sister-in-law, Robert leaves a trust fund of $300,000. This will provide monthly disbursements of $2,000 for living expenses. The principal cannot be accessed, and the trust will be managed by Claire as trustee. $2,000 a month? My father shouted. "That is insulting. We are his family." Robert felt this arrangement would provide for your needs while preventing mismanagement of funds, James said evenly. He was quite clear on this point. He moved on to my siblings. To Trevor and Hannah, Robert leaves $50,000 each to be distributed in quarterly installments over 2 years. Trevor looked like he might be ill. Hannah was openly sobbing. James concluded, "There is one final element. Robert left letters for each of you. He distributed sealed envelopes. Mine was thick, several pages at minimum. My parents' envelopes were noticeably thinner. Trevor and Hannah received single sheets. "You may read these privately," James said. "The formal estate distribution will begin next week. Claire, I will need to meet with you separately to discuss your responsibilities as trustee and as executive executor." My family filed out without making eye contact with me. I waited until they were gone before opening my letter. "Dear Claire, if you are reading this, I am gone. I had hoped for many more years, but one never knows. I wanted to explain my decisions to you directly, not just through legal documents. I have watched you grow from a quiet, overlooked child into a remarkable woman. You chose a difficult path, dedicating yourself to science and research that helps others. You did this without family support, without recognition from those who should have celebrated you most. You built your success on your own merit and maintained your integrity even when compromise would have been easier. I have also watched how your parents and siblings treated you. The Dubai incident was the final confirmation of what I had suspected for years. They saw you as a resource to exploit, not as a person to value. Your mother's bragging about manipulating you into paying for their vacation sickened me. And I realized then that leaving my estate to your parents would mean it would ultimately be taken from you in pieces through guilt trips and manufactured emergencies. You deserve this inheritance, Claire. Not because I pity you, but because you have earned it through your character and your choices. Use it to build the life you want, free from the weight of family obligation. Pursue your research, travel, invest in your future. Do whatever brings you joy. I am proud of you. I wish I had told you that more often when I was alive. You are everything a father could want in a daughter, and I am sorry your own parents could not see that. With love and respect. Uncle Robert, I read the letter 3 times, tears streaming down my face. Someone had seen me. Someone had valued me. Someone had given me not just money, but validation and freedom. When I left the attorney's office, my parents were waiting in the hallway. My mother's face was blotchy with rage. You poisoned him against us, she hissed. You turned Robert against his own family for money. I never said a word to Uncle Robert about any of you, I replied truthfully. He figured it out entirely on his own. We will contest this will, my father said coldly. You will not get away with stealing our inheritance. Uncle Robert anticipated that, I responded calmly. The attorney made very clear that the will is unbreakable, but feel free to waste money on lawyers. You seem to enjoy making poor financial decisions. My mother stepped closer, her voice venomous. You ungrateful, selfish girl. We raised you, we fed you and clothed you. We put a roof over your head. Everything you have, you owe to us. No, I said quietly. Everything I have, I earned despite you. Despite your manipulation, your theft, your constant attempts to diminish me. Uncle Robert saw the truth. He knew exactly who you were and who I am. That is why I got the estate, and you got a managed trust. Hannah appeared from around the corner, her face streaked with tears. How can you be so cold? We are your family. You stopped being my family when you stole from me and felt no remorse, I said. When you used me and gave nothing back. When you made me the villain for having boundaries. I am done pretending those blood ties mean something when they have only ever been a weapon against me. In the months following Uncle Robert's death, my life transformed completely. I met with James multiple times to understand my responsibilities as trustee and executor. The property in the Hamptons was a beautiful beach house I could keep, sell, or rent. The investment portfolio was expertly managed and generating substantial returns. The rare book collection alone was worth over $200,000. I made decisions quickly and strategically. I would keep the beach house as a personal retreat. The investment portfolio would remain largely as it was, with some diversification recommended by financial advisors. The automobile collection would be sold through specialty auctions. Within 1 month, I had liquidated some assets and reorganized others. My personal net worth had increased by over $4 million. It was surreal, transformative, and genuinely terrifying. I had shifted from living paycheck to possessing more money than I could reasonably spend in a lifetime. I hired a wealth management firm to help navigate this new financial reality. I established trusts for future charitable giving, invested in startups working on medical innovations, and created a substantial scholarship fund for students pursuing biotechnology research. The money would do good. It would help people. It would mean something beyond sitting in accounts. I also did something for myself. I purchased a house in Seattle, a beautiful modern residence with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view of the water. It had space for a home office, a genuine kitchen for cooking, and a yard where I could plant a garden. For the first time in my life, I had a home that was truly mine, purchased with money no one could claim came from them. 3 months after Uncle Robert's death, I received an email from Hannah. The subject line read, "Please read. Claire, I know you probably do not want to hear from me, but I need to say this. Kyle and I are losing the house. We are 30 days from foreclosure. The $50,000 from Uncle Robert helped, but it was not enough to cover all our debts. I am not asking you for money. I know you would say no. And honestly, I do not blame you. I just wanted you to know that I understand now what we did to you. Not just the Dubai thing, but everything. All those times we expected you to help while giving nothing back. All those times we made you feel small so we could feel bigger. I am sorry, Claire. I know sorry does not fix anything, but I need you to know I finally see it. We were terrible to you and you deserved so much better. I hope you are happy now. I really do. You earned it. I stared at the email for a long time. Part of me wanted to feel vindicated. Part of me wanted to feel compassion. Mostly, I felt nothing. Hannah's apology came too late and meant too little. She was sorry now because she was experiencing consequences. But where was the apology when I was drowning under their financial demands? I did not respond. My professional work continued to flourish brilliantly. The Regenerative Medicine Division published breakthrough research that garnered international attention. I was invited to speak at conferences across the world, sharing our findings with the scientific community. My team expanded, attracting brilliant researchers who shared my passion for innovation. Victoria pulled me aside after one particularly successful presentation. Claire, I have been in this industry for 30 years, and I have rarely seen someone with your combination of scientific brilliance and genuine leadership ability. You are going to change the world. By the time I was 32 years old, I was being actively recruited by universities and research institutions globally. I had options, opportunities, and the freedom to choose my path based on what I genuinely wanted, not what I could afford. I met someone at a medical technology conference. Daniel, a kind and brilliant surgeon with his own successful career. Our relationship was built on equality, shared interests, and genuine affection. It was unlike anything I had experienced before, unburdened by obligation or manipulation. When Daniel proposed after a year of dating, I said yes without hesitation. We planned a small wedding, just close friends and chosen family. No one from my biological family received an invitation. I did not owe them a role in my happiness. 3 years after cutting off my family, the guilt had dissipated entirely. I had learned the hard truth. You do not owe anyone access to your life, your resources, or your peace. Not even family, especially not family that treats you like an ATM with a heartbeat. My parents continued to receive their monthly trust disbursements, a constant reminder that I controlled resources they could not access. Trevor struggled with various failed business ventures, never quite achieving the success he felt entitled to. Hannah and Kyle eventually declared bankruptcy and moved to a smaller home, their lavish lifestyle unsustainable without someone else funding it. And me? I built a life filled with purpose, success, and genuine relationships. I funded research that helped thousands of people. I mentored young scientists who reminded me of my younger self, overlooked and underestimated. I traveled the world, purchased beautiful things when I wanted them, and gave generously to causes I believed in. The greatest revenge was not making them suffer. It was showing them through my success and happiness exactly what they had lost when they chose to use me rather than love me. Years later, when I thought about those first-class tickets to Dubai purchased with my stolen money, I no longer felt rage. I felt grateful. That theft had been the catalyst I needed to finally break free from decades of manipulation. It had shown me clearly and undeniably that my family would never change, that no amount of giving would ever be enough, that I deserved better. My Uncle Robert's inheritance had given me financial freedom, but that freedom truly started the moment I chose to stop participating in my own exploitation. The moment I said no and meant it. The moment I walked away from people who saw my value only in what I could provide. Today, I live in peace, not the peace of avoidance or denial, but the peace of clarity and strong boundaries. I understand now that love is not about obligation. It is not about sacrifice or guilt. It is about choosing people who choose you, valuing those who value you, and building relationships based on reciprocity and genuine care. I have that now. I have that with Daniel, with Jessica, with colleagues who respect my work, with a chosen family that actually sees me. I have a life that matters, one where my contributions help people, where my success is celebrated, where my value is recognized. My biological family can continue their lives in whatever way they choose. The trust provides for my parents. Trevor and Hannah received their inheritances. I owe them nothing more. They are not absent from my life because I am vindictive or cruel. They are absent because maintaining contact would require me to compromise my peace and my boundaries. That is a price I will never pay again.